What if the greatest victory isn't won through confrontation, but through transformation? That the truest form of payback isn't something you do to someone, but something you become. This is the paradox that separates those who merely survive betrayal from those who transcend it entirely. And by the end of this exploration, you'll understand why the most devastating revenge is the one nobody sees coming, because it's not revenge at all, it's evolution. Betrayal comes in many forms. Sometimes it's loud and unmistakable, a lie told to your face, a promise broken without hesitation, but more often it's insidious. It arrives wrapped in false smiles and reassuring words. It disguises itself as friendship while slowly dismantling your trust. It whispers doubts about your worth while pretending to celebrate your success. And when you finally realize what's happened, the damage runs so deep that anger feels almost meaningless. When we're wounded like this, our instinct is primal. We want to fight back. We want them to feel what we felt. We construct elaborate scenarios in our minds where we confront them with the perfect words, where we finally make them understand the weight of their actions. We obsess over how to make them pay. But here's what most people never realize. This obsession, this hunger for revenge, is actually the final way they control you. You're still thinking about them. You're still investing your emotional energy into them. They may have left your presence, but they haven't left your mind. The ancient Stoics grasped something profound that modern revenge fantasies miss entirely. They understood that the only battle worth fighting is the one with yourself. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps history's most powerful man, spent his evenings reminding himself that external events, other people's actions, their words, their betrayals, are ultimately beyond his control. What remained in his control was singular and absolute, his response. This distinction changes everything. Consider what happens when you choose silence not as defeat, but as strategy. When someone hurts you and expects the usual cascade of emotions, explanations, and reactionary chaos, but instead receives nothing, something profound shifts. The narrative they expected shatters. They anticipated your breakdown. They braced for your anger. They prepared counterarguments for your accusations, but you simply move forward. This creates a vacuum they never anticipated, and the human mind abhors such emptiness. If you are still watching till this time, it shows that you are finding value in this video. So take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps to reach people like you who are interested in content like this. Real power isn't displayed through words. Words are cheap. Actions are cheaper still when they're reactive. True dominance lives in the untouchable state, that place where you're so focused on your own elevation that someone else's attempt to diminish you simply doesn't land. It's like throwing a stone at someone who's already left the room. The effort expends itself in empty space. Think about what genuine growth looks like during such moments. While you could be consumed by anger, you're building discipline. While you could be chasing closure from someone incapable of giving it, you're developing independence. While you could be planning confrontations that change nothing, you're reshaping your reality. Each choice compounds. Days become weeks, weeks become months, and suddenly you're a completely different person. Not just outwardly, though that's often visible, stronger, sharper, more radiant with purpose, but fundamentally transformed in how you relate to your own life. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus lived as a slave, yet described himself as freer than his master. His reasoning was elegant. A master could break his body, but only he could surrender his mind. This isn't poetic language. This is practical wisdom. When you refuse to give someone your mental real estate, when you deny them the satisfaction of your suffering, you've claimed the only territory that truly matters. Here's where this becomes truly powerful. As you disappear into your purpose, something unexpected happens to those who hurt you. They're left alone with their actions. There's no dramatic scene to refight. There's no audience for their justifications. There's no supply of attention and emotional reaction to feed their narrative. And human beings, especially those driven by the need to control or diminish others, cannot survive in that void. They need the drama. They need your engagement. They need confirmation that they still matter enough to affect you. But you've moved beyond the point where they matter. not through hatred. Hatred would mean they still occupy your thoughts, but through genuine indifference. And that indifference, that genuine non-reaction, that's what finally breaks the cycle. You haven't defeated them in their game. You've simply stopped playing. The justice that follows isn't something you orchestrate. It's something the universe provides through the natural consequences of their own patterns. While you were healing, they were repeating. While you were building, they were breaking. While you were learning from what happened, they were becoming more trapped by who they are. This isn't metaphysical magic. It's observable reality. People who operate through manipulation, betrayal, and control inevitably self-destruct. You don't need to watch it happen. You don't need to be there when it occurs. Your only task is to ensure you're not part of their descent. The most transformative insight is this: genuine revenge is impossible. The moment you seek to harm someone who harmed you, you've inherited their values. You've allowed their low road to become your destination. But if instead you dedicate yourself to becoming someone so elevated, so grounded, so purposeful that their attempt to diminish you becomes irrelevant, that's victory of an entirely different caliber. That's the kind of win that doesn't require vindication. It doesn't require them to ever acknowledge what they've lost. So when you face that moment, when betrayal has struck and the initial shock gives way to a choice, ask yourself what you actually want. Do you want them to hurt, or do you want to be healed? Do you want them to suffer, or do you want to thrive? Those are fundamentally different paths, and they lead to entirely different destinations. The path of genuine strength is the path of becoming unreachable, not through anger, but through transcendence, not through force, but through focus. You don't declare war. You simply start living in a way that makes their weapons obsolete. You invest in yourself with a ferocity that takes your breath away. You become so engaged with your own growth that looking back becomes physically impossible, not because you're running from something, but because you're running towards something. And months or years later, when you finally encounter them again or hear news of their lives, you'll feel something unexpected. Not triumph, not satisfaction, simply the quiet knowledge that you chose the harder path, the smarter path, and it led you somewhere they could never reach. That's the revenge the Stoics knew was real, becoming a version of yourself that their attempts at destruction could never touch. That's the victory worth pursuing, and that's the silence that speaks louder than any word ever could.